attaching a CSS style sheet, an external CSS style sheet, is a little bit of a tricky business. One of the reasons is because you need to create an actual extra file and then you're connecting it to your code. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that so that you don't have any trouble with it. So I have this folder called project1website_website. You must have this folder because if you don't, then you're not going to have the correct path to from file to file. So make sure you have the project1_website folder and that your index.html is actually in that folder. You can see if I double click on it, here's my index.html. It's inside this nice neat folder. So I'm going to drag that onto Dreamweaver. Okay, and as I open it up into text view, you can sort of see. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and make it a little bit bigger for you guys so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, so this is the file that you've been working on up until now. So to connect a CSS style sheet, you must first make an external CSS style sheet. Now you've been making an HTML file and you did a great job with that. We need to go ahead and make a new CSS style sheet. Now you can do File New, CSS, and you click on Create. Now for those of you guys who are using Notepad++ or using something else, you don't really need anything in your CSS file. You don't need anything special. Creating one in Dreamweaver doesn't make it special. All you need is this piece at the top which says @charset quotes UTF-8 quotes semicolon. Even without this little piece at the top, it will work. This is best practices, but without this piece, it will work. So the next thing I'm going to do is make sure I save it, and this is what makes it a CSS style sheet, by naming it something.css. So I'm going to do File, Save As, and into my DMA 145 folder, in Project 1, in project1_website, I'm going to name it, make sure it's in project1_website. I'm going to name it project1.css, and I'm going to save it. Now I have these two files up. I have an index.html file up, and I have a project1.css. So now that I have these two files, I can go ahead and link them. So linking them is the most important part. So when we go up here, you should have this file that has an HTML and a closing HTML at the bottom, right? You also have, in this file, you have an opening head tag and a closing head tag. This link to the CSS goes in the head, so it should go between the opening tag and the closing tag. So I'm going to put it right after my title. And I'm going to type in link. Okay. Now, this is a singular tag. It doesn't have a closing tag, but it does have a couple attributes. So inside this link tag or element, we need to put in rel equals style sheet. So you're telling it what it is. Is it the main style sheet? Is it a different kind of style sheet? So rel equals style sheet. Type equals, and you're telling it what language sort of you're writing in. Type equals text/CSS. So you need to make sure you type this in exactly correct. If you're having trouble with making with spelling and things like that, you can go to W3 Schools and grab this piece of code. It's there in one of those links I gave you. So link rel style sheet, type text/CSS, and then this is the most important part. Well, this is one of the most important parts. You have to have all three of those parts. href equals. And href equals means that this is the path that we're going to point to that file. So I know that mine is in the same folder with the other one. So I'm going to say project1.css. So all it needs to do is look in the same folder for a file named project1.css. Now, how do you know if it actually worked? Well, we need to put in some CSS styles to make sure it actually worked. So if I go over here, my project1.css, I need to select some part of my page. So I'm going to select the body part of my page. You can also select H1, H2, and that should go, you should be able to go through that in W3 Schools. But I'm going to select body, and then I'm going to put some curly brackets on. Okay, now each one, this is my selector. I'm selecting body, and then the curly brackets are to tell you, or to tell the browser that anything between these curly brackets should be applied to the body. So one of my properties is called background-color. color. And if you put a pound sign and then you put in your color, I'm just going to make up a color. I usually just make up something. It needs 6 numbers, right? Okay, and then a semicolon. So again, the property is background dash color. There's a semicolon, a colon. Then there's my color, and all colors must have that hashtag in front, or else they won't render in, I think, Firefox. And then they need this semicolon. So now if I go to preview it, and you'll notice you cannot preview a CSS because it doesn't actually have any HTML properties. You have to preview the HTML document. So if I go to HTML and I go and preview this thing in Firefox, yay, it has a background color. Now I know that the two are linked together, and now I can start adding styles.